talking about getting started for you, as you said, you were trying to search for some job as a young person in the State Department, and you went on to become an ambassador, and now you're organizing different charities and different helpful causes. You are speaking, giving your voice. But I want to go a little bit before, what was your process of getting into becoming something of a diplomat? Because this is something I feel a lot of the world right now is missing, is a good conversation between different ideological views, different people. And for you to be helping out for Nepal, there's a need of a really good communication. And what I feel like you do have and what you have accomplished and you have proven. But for our viewers, it feels like with all of the different point of view and different ideology misunderstanding, I feel like the world diplomacy and a diplomat as a person feels more important than ever now.
I think there's probably some real truth to that. My journey, though, was a little different. As a young man, I had quit school when I had started university because it was the tail end of the Vietnam War era. We were still a nation that was struggling to find our way a bit, much as we are today, I think. And I wasn't really sure why I was there. I wasn't really sure what I aspired to, what I wanted. I had a chance, though, over the next few years, I traveled. And I went to Europe for the first time as a young man in my early 20s. And I went with a backpack and a Eurail pass, and I bummed around Europe for about 9 weeks. And I said, oh my God, there's this whole world out here. There's so much. And there were so many opportunities to engage people and to see different cultures and to think differently and to realize there were so many perspectives that when I came back, I decided maybe it is time to go back to school. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I wanted to engage the world somehow. And so back to school I went. And I did my waltz through the liberal arts. I did humanities and I did literature and philosophy, but I ended up as a major in diplomatic history. And that's because I had a professor who made this come alive, who made these stories. And we were looking at modern European diplomatic history. So 18th century, 17th, 18th, 19th century Europe. And, that might seem really dull to some people, but I'll tell you that this professor made this real. He made this story come to life around me. And it made me realize that these individuals, Metternich and Bismarck and so many other figures in history, they were real people. And as people, they had an impact. The force of their personality, the way they engaged, their vision, their messaging, all of it mattered tremendously. And that history is shaped by huge events, yes, by the force of many different things in societies and economies and change, but it's also changed. It's also influenced greatly by people. And I thought this was really interesting. So I pondered for a bit then. I thought, I wonder how you get to be a diplomat. But this was the 1970s. This was before there was internet. I couldn't Google this. I couldn't ask Alexa. And I never thought to go to the library and do the research to figure this out. And in the Midwest, no one knew that much about the Foreign Service. I was in St. Paul, Minnesota. So I basically said, well, you must have to know somebody. And I let it go. But it didn't die. That dream didn't die. A couple of years later, I was in law school, and I realized I really wasn't necessarily aspiring to practice law. It was a very good education, but it wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do. And one day, between the summer of my second and third year of law school, I was working. I was working in a warehouse, and a guy gave me a newspaper, Wall Street Journal. It said, really good article in the Journal today, and I read it at lunchtime. I don't remember what the article was, but then I looked at the want ads because I thought I'd better figure out what lawyers are doing in the real world, because sooner or later I'm going to have to get a job. I can't go to school forever. And there was an ad about this big. And it said, the U.S. Department of State announces the examination for the Foreign Service. And I looked at that and I thought, you take a test? I thought, well, heck, I do tests. I got in just under the deadline. By about 2 days, I beat the deadline for registering.
You got your calling.
I took the test in November of that year. It was 1979. The Iranian hostage crisis was in full bloom by then. A lot of people thought, why are you even considering this? Are you crazy? But it seemed like a good idea at the time. And I was accepted. I made it through what was then a lengthy process. 20,000 of us took the exam that Saturday in March.
Wow.
200 of us ended up getting offers. So I will tell you honestly that when I was offered to come in June of 1981 to join the entering class of the Foreign Service that month, I thought, I have no idea what I'm really getting into, but I know this was really hard to do, and very few people get this offer, so I'd be foolish not to at least try. So I went to Washington in June of 1981, and I joined the Foreign Service, and I've never looked back. And as I said, I didn't know what I was getting into. But I learned, as I told you, I learned it was about service. But also, to your point, in today's world, not just today's world, though, but in the world in general, we need more people who are willing to listen, to talk to each other, to be open and honest with each other, to share views, to find those bridges. And there are bridges there that can build common understanding, that can allow us to build partnerships, that can overcome differences that we believe are so firmly rooted that we can never solve the problem, but we can. But it begins, oftentimes, with a single conversation. It begins with the willingness to engage and to listen to each other. And this is important in today's world. And this was something that each step of the way through my career, that opportunity to engage others, to learn, and much as I did on that first trip to Europe, to learn that there are other cultures, other ways of viewing things, other perspectives, and we have to begin to understand these things. And in doing that, we not only find that opportunity to build these bridges, but we enrich ourselves and we enrich our lives and we enrich our own societies and communities. And I think that's important. I think it's worth doing. I think it's worth pursuing.